It was supposed to be the biggest deal of the year, a billion-dollar merger that could change the future of an entire company. Cameras flashed, reporters filled the lobby, and the CEO of Harlow Industries walked in with confidence carved into every step. But then, something went terribly wrong. The translator, his bridge to the Chinese investors, was nowhere to be found. The clock ticked, panic spread, and the room turned cold. In that silence, every second felt like a countdown to disaster. No one could have imagined that the one person who would save it all wasn't in a suit, but holding a mop. The skyscraper of Harlow Industries gleamed like a monument to power, glass, steel, and ambition reaching for the clouds. Inside, everything ran on precision: polished floors, timed meetings, and employees who knew when to speak and when to stay invisible. Among them was Marcus, the night janitor. Every evening, while executives discussed profits and projections, Marcus swept through their discarded coffee cups and crumpled plans, humming softly to keep the long hours from feeling too heavy. No one ever noticed him. To them, he was part of the background, quiet, steady, replaceable. Yet Marcus was far more than what his uniform suggested. Years ago, he had studied international relations and languages at a state university, fluent in Mandarin from a scholarship program that took him to Beijing. But when life hit hard, layoffs, debt, and a father's hospital bills, his career plans disappeared. The janitor job wasn't his dream, but it paid what he needed. That morning, the office was electric with anticipation. The CEO, Richard Harlow, had been preparing for months to meet the delegation from a massive Chinese conglomerate, one deal that could skyrocket his company into the global market. Every executive was on edge, their confidence laced with fear. Translators, assistants, and analysts rehearsed the meeting like a performance that couldn't fail. Then came the storm of bad news. The professional translator was delayed, grounded hours away by a cancelled flight. Richard's composure cracked for the first time in years. Without precise translation, the deal could fall apart before it began. The team scrambled for solutions, but none came. The delegation was already on their way upstairs. And in the middle of this chaos, Marcus was mopping the marble floors outside the conference room, just close enough to hear the panic that would soon change everything. Ting. Marcus paused, his mop gliding to a stop as he caught fragments of the executives' frantic voices echoing through the glass walls. Words like disaster, unacceptable, and delay hung heavy in the air. He saw faces pale under the fluorescent lights, men and women in designer suits who suddenly looked powerless. The translator's absence wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a threat to everything they had built. He listened quietly, heart pounding. Mandarin phrases slipped from one of the assistants' lips, poorly pronounced, misused, desperate. Marcus winced. He knew exactly what they were trying to say, and how wrong it sounded. The CEO's tone grew sharper, his gestures more erratic. Papers rustled. Someone cursed under their breath. The air was thick with fear. For Marcus, it was a strange kind of ache. He'd spent years mastering a language most people around him didn't even know he spoke. He remembered nights studying under dim dorm lights, the laughter of classmates in Beijing who had welcomed him like family, the thrill of understanding a new world. And now those same skills, once a source of pride, were buried beneath the quiet rhythm of his mop. Still, something stirred inside him. The company that barely noticed his name tag was collapsing over a barrier he could easily bridge. But could he step in? Would anyone even listen? He imagined the looks, disbelief, mockery, suspicion. In a place where people saw his skin before his skill, his uniform before his worth, the risk was enormous. Meanwhile, the delegation arrived, 5 dignified figures in tailored suits, their expressions polite but guarded. Cameras followed their every step. Richard Harlow rushed forward, smiling too widely, extending his hand, praying no one noticed the cracks in his composure. Without a translator, the simplest greeting felt like crossing an ocean. Misunderstandings piled quickly. What was meant as respect came across as condescension. The investors exchanged confused glances. From the hallway, Marcus could see it unraveling, body language tightening, tones hardening. A potential partnership worth billions was sinking in real time. Then a young assistant burst into the hallway, nearly colliding with Marcus. She muttered something about the end of everything, and rushed back in. That's when Marcus made the choice. He set the mop aside, took a deep breath, and walked toward the boardroom doors. The guards by the entrance frowned, unsure whether to stop him. He spoke softly, explaining that he could help, that he knew Mandarin, that he understood what was being said inside. Their skepticism was immediate. But there was something calm, unwavering, about the way Marcus carried himself. It wasn't arrogance. It was quiet certainty. Inside, Richard was seconds away from calling off the meeting when the door opened. All eyes turned to the janitor, a man they had seen 100 times but never really seen. The room went silent, confusion rippling through the air. Cameras clicked, whispers followed. Marcus bowed slightly toward the investors, speaking in fluent Mandarin, his tone respectful, his words precise. For a moment, no one breathed. The investors blinked, then smiled, recognizing the warmth and accuracy in his speech. The tension eased instantly. Richard's jaw slackened as he watched the impossible unfold. The janitor, the man he'd walked past daily without acknowledgement, was now effortlessly doing what no one else in the room could. And in that moment, everything began to change. The room transformed. Marcus became the lifeline holding two worlds together. Each sentence he translated rebuilt the crumbling trust, his voice steady and confident. The investors leaned in, their skepticism melting into admiration. Richard watched in stunned silence as the janitor he'd ignored now commanded the room with grace and intellect. When Marcus clarified a complex negotiation point, sealing mutual understanding, applause erupted from the delegation. In that instant, every label, every assumption, shattered. The man once invisible now stood at the center of power, reminding everyone that brilliance wears many faces, and sometimes it carries a mop. When the meeting ended, the investors shook hands enthusiastically, the deal secured. Cameras captured smiles, but the real story wasn't in the contract. It was in the quiet pride on Marcus's face. Richard approached him awkwardly, gratitude laced with shame, realizing how deeply he had misjudged the man who saved his legacy. Word spread through the building, the janitor who spoke Mandarin. Yet for Marcus, the victory wasn't about recognition. It was about reclaiming dignity in a place that had denied it. That night, as he walked past the mirrored lobby, his reflection no longer looked like the help. It looked like possibility itself. How many others, unseen and underestimated, hold brilliance waiting to be noticed?